I wanted to take a quick look at some of the tournaments that have taken place over the weekend. There was a bunch of nationals, also the big one, which is likely to be the biggest European national this season, which was the French National Championship. I want to take this as an opportunity to talk about the state of the game at the moment. It's two very well-known players. It's Gabriel Susi against Anthony Lopez. It is a Snake Eye mirror match. I think all four semi-finalists were playing Snake Eyes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think top 4 was 4 Snake Eye decks. Gabriel Susi wins the dice roll in the finals and goes first. And as we can already see in his hand, he does not have a starter. He does not have the ability to play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment. He just activates the field spell and is going to pass after, like, I think setting an impermanence, because his hand is like Imperm, Veiler, Talents, Crossout, and the field spell. Now, Anthony, on the other hand, is gifted with some starters here. And this is where normally Gabe would actually not be in that bad of a position, because let's be real, Anthony is not going to be able to really push through this, because Imperm, Veiler, Crossout is just a combination of 3 cards in the Snake Eye mirror match that you can't really play through. Those are small nuances, but some people, when they brick with just Divine Temple of the Snake Eye, might have put a Snake Eye Ash in the spell and trap zone. I think in the Snake Eye mirror match, it is a lot better to place Poplar, because Poplar will guarantee you follow-up. At the same time, Poplar, once it goes into the monster zone, if the opponent runs over it, it'll go back into the spell and trap zone, which is important to disable any Hita lines, right? The fact that he picks the Poplar is a very, very small thing, but I think really important in this situation. But Anthony has the best card in this situation, which is a Ghost Ogre, meaning that no matter what happens throughout the rest of this turn, whether Anthony is able to push through or not, we already know Gabriel does not have a way to play at the moment, and Ghost Ogre on the Divine Temple means that he doesn't get it. He needs to top deck another play. All right, so Snake Eye Ash is normal, field spells activated, Ogre is chained, and then obviously we imperm the Snake Eye Ash. And then Bonfire is used as extender number 1, which Gabriel decides to cross out. It does notably reduce the number of cards that he can top deck next turn, but it's something you have to do in this situation. Gabe does simply not draw another play again, and Anthony also does not have a follow-up normal summon, so he just attacks with the SP Little Knight, and at this point we're basically just playing a game of when do we see the first playable Yu-Gi-Oh card, and it still is not now. He drew another Effect Veiler there, and now I saw Anthony's hand, it was Ash and Mourner, so he's kind of ready, and draws another Bonfire. The thing is, they have reached a point in this game where the hand traps do not really provide that much more value anymore for Gabe. There comes a point in the game where you need to have a disproportionate amount of interruptions for whatever the opponent does, because let's say there's a dark in the graveyard or there's a fire in the graveyard, so if you hand trap one of their cards, they might still be able to use Hita or dark, and that forces another hand trap. Maybe it's a situation like this where an SP has been summoned, so we can dodge one hand trap. With hand traps, you fall behind really fast against Snake Eyes, but it's still the only available counter to it that we have. Normal summons Mourner, goes into Promethean, trying to attack for game through potential set Imperm. I like this play. Ooh, it's Droplet actually. Okay, that's like the only card that I can think of that prevents game here and leaves Gabe with somewhat of a chance. And we're just passing on a Hita, and at this point it's crazy to think about it, but because of how powerful the Snake Eye deck is, if Gabe draws like a Snake Eye Ash here, he might still be in the game from his perspective, right? Because there's one card in Anthony's hand. Even if that is a hand trap, we have a Talents to back up our play, and then all you have to play through is one Promethean Princess, and he's drawn Snake Eye Diabell Star. Not a playable card at all. So this was game 1. In my opinion, this game had 2 interesting decisions. Placing the Poplar on the first turn with the field spell, and not making Anima before going into SP Little Knight to play around Typhon, but not banishing the Poplar. 2 decisions that were not basically guaranteed. I was watching this from my holidays, right? The only thing I was thinking to myself was, I know what these 2 players are capable of, right? I know the kind of game that these 2 could be showing us if this sort of dynamic wasn't so prevalent in the format right now, if that makes any sense, right? It's not their fault, right? They are just playing the best deck that's giving them the best chances to win, like absolutely. And the format is still skillful, because even though I said there was only 2 things worth talking about in the first game, those small things can change the entire outcome of a game and are still super important. That is why such good players are still making it to the finals of these tournaments, right? That's why people like Christian Reina were able to win back-to-back YCSs with the Snake Eye deck still, right? The skill is still there. It is just harder to spot, and it is a lot less apparent, and it could be so much more. And game 2 starts with Gabe adding a Witch with Wanted, discarding a deck lockdown for the Witch, and being imperm. Crosses out the imperm and gets Veilered on the Diabell Star. And now I'm looking at his hand and I'm seeing a deck lockdown and I think a Forbidden Droplet. So he's gonna pass on a deck lock. But there's one thing he's definitely not going to do, and that is play the game. So we mind control the Diabell Star. Normal summon Ghost Ogre because we also didn't draw a starter, and we're gonna turn this into an SP. Now this one is just a mistake. This one needs to be a Dark Charmer. The only thing that Dark Charmer, let's call it, loses to, but it doesn't even lose, is imperm or dropleted or whatever, right? Then it doesn't really do anything. The thing is that SP also doesn't provide a disruption if that is the set card, right? If there's an imperm and your opponent top decks a play, then the SP also doesn't provide any sort of interaction. So the best course of action here is to go for the dark, because if dark resolves, you win the game immediately because you get to steal the Diabell Star and use the effect and all that, and still make SP Little Knight if you want to. Playing around a Set Wanted. Okay, Set Wanted adds back the Diabell Star from the graveyard to make the dark not work. I guess that's fair. Gabe doesn't draw a play here again. And the problem in this spot, it's not unwinnable for Gabe, but it's really, really unlikely once you are in this situation. Because whenever Anthony draws a card, he either draws more answers to Gabe's potential outs, or he draws cards that win the game for himself, right? As soon as the deck lockdown is gone, as soon as he draws a Snake Eye Ash, the game basically ends. Or he draws like Imperm, Veiler, Mourner, Ash, or whatever, the kind of cards that Gabe can't really play through anymore. If I remember correctly, we're gonna see Gabe do something really desperate, but also very funny. At this point, the chance that Anthony lets this Diabell Star go through is literally 0% at this level, right? You know, he hasn't had a real play for the last couple turns. The Diabell Star is going to get negated anyways. So Gabe is just going to summon it without effect to at least be able to attack over the SP. Because if you use the effect here, it's chain SP, chain imperm, and then it's negated and banished, and you don't even get rid of the SP. And now it's just a situation where Anthony has 4 cards, Gabe has 1. Anthony still doesn't have a play, but he has like infinite ways to stop Gabe's plays. So we imperm the Poplar. I find this very remarkable because Gabe doesn't even go for a Charmer because the chance it resolves is so small that it's better to keep the Diabell Star on the field. Long story short, Gabe doesn't get another turn because one of the cards in Anthony's hand that he wasn't able to play the previous turns was a Talents. It's just going to be game. Yeah. I was happy to see Anthony win it after having gotten so close in the past. Congratulations to Anthony. But I guess we've talked about it already a little bit. But I think the same thing I said after game 1 applies to game 2. There were very, very little spots in this game where the decision was not basically 100% clear cut. There's not that many moments in this game where I would like pause and think about like, why would they do that? Or why would they not do that? There's a whole lot of just automated stuff happening. You always do this, you always do that. It reminds me a lot of this clip that I shared on Twitter. Just look at it and tell me that doesn't remind you of almost any Snake Eye game you've ever seen. That's the best part. This final reminded me of that. I want to talk about why that is, why it feels like that. Some people blame Snake Eyes for this. Some people blame hand traps for this. It's a little bit of both, but let me voice my thoughts real quick. I think the root of the problem is 1-card combos. And I know we've talked about this a bunch in the past, but I think in this situation, hand traps can make the game feel very, very unfun. I do agree with that, but I don't think it's hand traps' fault that the games go like this. I think hand traps are more more like a symptom rather than a cause. This only happens when people are forced to play a lot of hand traps, because hand traps have existed for a long time. When has the last meta relevant hand trap been printed that's actually seeing a lot of play right now? Like, out of the ones that are being played right now, all of those exist like for 4 or 5 years. It's probably Mourner. What is Mourner? 2020? And Mourner is even one of the less popular ones, right? But like Veiler, Imperm, Ash, Ghost Ogre, Nibiru, all that stuff has been existing since like 5, 6, 7 years, right? And Veiler even older than that. How come that not every format, since we've had this many hand traps, feels this way, right? It's because I don't think hand traps are the thing that causes this, right? Because hand traps are a lot of the time solid cards that are necessary against some kind of decks, but not good against every kind of deck, and therefore only being played in moderate amounts in, let's call it, a regular Yu-Gi-Oh format that isn't tier 0 or whatever. So I think what causes this exceptionally high use of hand traps is the fact that you simply cannot deal with such an efficient one-card combo deck like Snake Eyes in any other way. I've tried so many different board breaker approaches and all that. You guys know that. I've brought them to different regionals, different tournaments, played them in remote duels and all that kind of stuff, right? I was playing that because I enjoy it more. I was trying to make it work. The reality is it is simply not feasible to deal with the amount of card advantage that one Snake Eye Ash provides without just stopping it. Right? The craziest part is that the deck is so good at playing through interruptions as well, right? Because like all of the cards in the deck can either be your starter or your extender, right? You can start your combo with a Bonfire, but you can also use Bonfire to extend. You can start your combo with Diabellstar, or you can also use Diabellstar to extend, right? Same is true for Wanted, but even better. Another thing that I find concerning is a card design that I've referred to a lot of the times recently as just giving archetypes poplars. The ones that just say, if I'm added to hand, I can summon myself and I do whatever, right? I feel like it plays a big part in making these combos so good and so linear, because let's face it, 99% of the time when you activate a Bonfire or a Snake Eye Ash, your search target is predetermined and you don't really have to think about it, right? To me, at least, one of the most fun parts of searchers in Yu-Gi-Oh is the ability to access different parts of your deck, right? I find the entire concept kind of bizarre of making search cards and then there's only one obvious target for them, and then you always do the same thing with them. I find that kind of weird. Wanted, I mean, Wanted is a stupid broken card. It's okay if you make a searcher that is dedicated to find a specific card. Like, for example, they made that one card for Ashen that searches Vados because the deck needs to search Vados, right? The idea of making Wanted to have Diabellstar be more accessible is fine by me. The Diabellstar cards, for the most part, I'm completely fine with. I find Wanted a little bit overtuned, and I am annoyed by Wanted a lot of the time, but I have a bigger issue with the Snake Eye cards. If original Sinful Spoils didn't summon Snake Eye Ash, I don't think anyone would complain about the Diabellstar cards. Have you ever, in Master Duel, for example, played against someone and they summoned Diabellstar, but then it turned out it wasn't a Snake Eye deck? They were either setting the trap card or they were summoning something completely different with original Sinful Spoils. Have you ever experienced the amount of relief that you feel when it turns out they are not summoning Snake Eye Ash? It's crazy how fair it feels to play against just Diabellstar cards. I think it would be fine for Wanted to exist if it wasn't for Snake Eyes. I wanted to voice my concerns in this direction because I think one-card combos are something they're getting more and more common these days. It is one of the things that has me concerned, because the more powerful a singular card gets in general, the more it forces people to play a bunch of hand traps. If you're going second and your opponent has the ability to print like 8 cards out of 1 card, then the only natural solution to that is to make sure you can stop that 1 card. It's just not a fair situation for you to go second. You get 1 extra card, but your opponent gets like 8 extra cards because you went first and resolved a 1-card combo. You're not playing the game on an even playing field at all. This was my main complaint with MathMech at the time. This was my main complaint with Sun Avalon. This is still my main complaint with Snake Eyes. And I feel like recently, when we're reacting to new cards from the OCG, there's a tendency to make more of that sort of stuff. The direction that some of this goes to is concerning to me. no matter how much criticism I'm voicing right now and concerns I'm voicing right now, it is not a coincidence that people like Anthony Lopez and Gabriel Susi are still in the finals of the biggest European nationals. It is not a coincidence that Christian Urena is able to win back-to-back YCSs with Snake Eyes still. The amount of skill that goes into Yu-Gi-Oh is still tremendous, and it's still a very good game. I feel like there are currently less decisions being made in these high-level games. There are still some, and there are still very, very important decisions to be made, which is the most important part. There's more factors than just the gameplay, right? There is deck building, tech card choices, side decking correctly, building a right side deck choice to begin with. All this kind of stuff is still tremendously important and still makes it so that these people are able to succeed at a high level, and it's still fine. From a spectator perspective though, I think it could be a lot better. Like if you have a finals between two players like this, I think it could look a lot more exciting, which is also something to be concerned about, especially from Konami's perspective, right? Like how exciting, how engaging are your finals, right? How cool is it for someone to watch and be like, hey, I want to play this game? From a content creator perspective, I can tell you, I feel that whenever a Snake Eye mirror match is on stream or Challenger Cup or whatever, right? I can tell how people feel about it. I think it's something that was overlooked when they made the most recent Forbidden and Limited list. The most recent Forbidden and Limited list did a lot of great things, but specifically not tackling the Snake Eye core, I can't help but think that was a mistake. I think there should have been something about this. So many people say ban original Sinful Spoils. What's your thought on that? I think that would be sufficient. One thing that I find weird about it is that it basically completely disconnects the Diabellstar archetype from the Snake Eye archetype, which lore-wise, to me personally, it doesn't matter that much, but sometimes I feel like they think of these things, right? They are meant to go together, right? And so like banning the one card that connects them is weird from that perspective. But from a pure gameplay standpoint, like I said earlier, whenever I'm playing against Diabellstar cards, not Snake Eyes involved, I feel like it's completely fine. So that'd be okay. If you think of Snake Eyes without original Sinful Spoils, the deck could still do a lot, right? It would technically still be possible to generate a whole bunch of card advantage with one Snake Eye Ash. But not only do you lose starters, most importantly, you lose extenders, right? Because you can't use Wanted or Diabellstar anymore. It hurts follow-up. I think it would be sufficient. Long story short. Snake Eyes maybe would still be okay. I don't know. But it would be so much more vulnerable that I don't think it would be a top tier deck anymore. Snake Eyes without Flamberge seems fine. With Snake Eyes without Flamberge also is fine. Yeah, probably fine. Let me get this out as like closing thoughts to this entire discussion. We all agree that something needs to be done about Snake Eyes. What I'm hoping that they do is that they ban something that changes the way that Snake Eyes work rather than just hitting consistency. I've literally played last week Limit 1 Festival in Master Duel. I played against Snake Eyes. Everything was limited. It still felt the same, dude. It still felt the absolute same. Consistency hits are trash. I want an actual hit. Whether it's ban Poplar, ban Original, ban Flamberge, I don't care. Ban something. Don't just limit Snake Eye Oak and call it a day or some shit like that. You know, that's probably the next Master Duel hit.